With this week's drive, we turn racing into an art form.
Nice, okay, nice.
Visit a stately English home. Drive a stately English car. And see how to deal with caravans. All this and more in this week's Drive. The world of Formula One has been described in many ways. Intimate, brutal, a family, and artistic. Just how artistic has been revealed in a display of work that all came from within the BAR team. Paintings, photographs and modernistic sculptures, as well as a video, all created by or around members of the elite racing squad that backs up former world champion Jacques Villeneuve and Olivier Panis. Perhaps the most impressive display of creative talent comes through the sculptures of chief mechanic Alistair Gibson and the photography of gearbox technician Chico Corradini. In the few precious moments that Alistair has free from his racing duties, he's turned his mechanical skills to sculpting, building sharks from Life or Timex Formula One car parts and other engineering objects. These are exquisitely crafted and sleek beasts, reminiscent of the cars they are made from, and amazingly near to anatomically correct. His interest was sparked by the great white sharks common off the coasts of his native South Africa.
They take me about a year to make each, so I just do them on free time, which is some weekends and some evenings. Basically, I get a basic idea and a sketch in my head and on a piece of paper, and start with a big wooden block and carve the base as from the top one and the bottom one, which is the motor white and the thresher. They're a wooden base, and then get aluminium and riveted onto the wood. The middle one, which is the wire tigers from the coat hangers. When you get your washing back in a Grand Prix team, you get a massive collection of coat hangers, you know, so the middle one's from coat hangers, and it's just used bits that normally would get thrown away in a Grand Prix team that I've collected up and made these sharks from.
Teammate Claudio Chico Corradini's equally impressive photography is born from more than 15 years' experience as an amateur photographer and inspired by his surroundings at the circuits that he visits each season.
My photography passion has developed in years, and I think is the contrast of what my job is. You know, rumors, noise, a lot of stress, and then my photography reflect, you know, the nature, relax, calm, you know, silence, something that I don't have when I'm working, really. As soon as I go one day or half a day that I can take some pictures, I grab my camera and I'm going wherever I can. Or sometimes I extend a trip, you know, putting maybe an extra day and I'm going somewhere very nice.
Some of it is the cleverness of it, and concerning the Chico's pictures, you know, the fact that he's actually been to these spots, and you know, he's got the eye to see what it's going to look on a picture, and it's great.
I'm very impressed, to be honest, and I'm really enjoy because I respect a lot the mechanic people. I respect Alistair and Chico because he work really hard for the team, but I don't know, he has this mind to make some different things, and I'm really impressed and I'm really happy. I'm really enjoy for them.
The exhibition also featured the work of renowned artist Julian Opie, perhaps most famous for producing the Blur Best Of album cover that now hangs in the National Portrait Gallery in London. Julian turned his attention to Jacques and Olivier for this one-off painting, creating 70-meter-long friezes of both drivers in his simplistic yet evocative two-dimensional, almost cartoon-like style.
Usually my aim is to try and make people look good, because that seems like a good way to judge whether the picture's working or not. But not everybody's pleased. We'll have to see.
Hannes Schmidt, a world-renowned fashion photographer, was commissioned to photograph both Jacques and Olivia as supermodels for the exhibition, with some impressive results.
I was actually very amazed. I thought first, you know, for them it's quite difficult, but the two guys are used to be in front of cameras and medias, and I think they did very well. At the beginning they were a bit scared to wear what we wanted to give to them, because it's also understandable. I mean, they don't see themselves as fashion models, they see them more as, you know, race drivers and personalities, and I think the balance we had at the end was really fantastic.
The fifth and final element of the exhibition is Philip Albera's award-winning film Pit Stop, the only part that reflects the traditional face of Formula One. A former racer himself, Philip is now a professional filmmaker on the racing circuit. A Rolls-Royce, an aristocrat with a flat cap, and roses. Where else but England? A ruined 12th century abbey and stately ancestral manor in the New Forest in southern England is home to Lord Montagu of Bewley, his family, and Britain's National Motor Museum, known throughout the world as the home of Britain's best collection of vintage cars.
It belonged to my great-grandfather, Duke of Buccleuch, who had a lot of estates in England and Scotland, and on his marriage in 1866, he was given Bewley as a wedding present, a very nice wedding present too. So we've been here now 3 generations.
But behind the stately stone house is the very modern National Motor Museum. Lord Montagu's motor collection grew from this first car, a 1903 de Dion Bouton, acquired by his father John in 1913 instead of rent from a tenant. Now there are over 300 cars, common and rare, in the collection, including the original star of the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Montagu started the museum in honour of his father's work promoting motoring and campaigning for acceptance of the motorcar.
The reason why we have number plates on the car was my father's bill. It also raised the speed limit from 12 to 20 miles an hour, a big deal. But and also, of course, in journalism, persuading people that cars were very important. Of course, the war proved them right.
John Montagu owned this 1899 Daimler, the oldest vehicle in the collection and the first 4-cylinder car. It was the first car allowed into the House of Commons' yard and the first British car raced in Europe. Montagu even took King Edward VII for a ride in it. This 1906 Columbia electric car belonged to Queen Alexandra, wife of King Edward, and drove so quietly that one day she ran over an unsuspecting gardener on the Sandringham estate. Doug Hill, technical manager at the museum, recalls the cure.
So they wired the Columbia Motor Company, who sent a man over on a steamer specifically just to fit a bell on the car to warn the gardeners.
There are a few bikes, but every car in the collection has its own story, from the Bluebird land speed record breaker to today's Formula One racers. From the E-Type Jag to the Jaguar XJ220. This 1935 Auburn 851 was driven by Marlene Dietrich in the film Desire. And for those who like to mix cars with adventure, shaken, not stirred, of course, there's a show of James Bond memorabilia featuring drive-on parts in the films The Underwater Lotus, Sean Connery's Aston Martin DB5 used in GoldenEye nudges bumpers with Goldfinger's Rolls-Royce. Bewley also hosts a full calendar of events throughout the year, including one of the world's largest swap meets. Recently, a Mini Cooper S convention was held, with over 900 of the specially modified Minis converging on the grounds from all over the United Kingdom. Enthusiasts celebrated 40 years since Mini fan John Cooper souped up the first Mini, converting it into a racing car. Since then, the Cooper and Cooper S have become synonymous with performance Minis and have been raced and rallied all over the world. The event was a chance for enthusiasts to find that elusive spare part, meet other people with the same passion, and to inspect restoration efforts. Each car is a labour of love. One day, Peter Laidler noticed holes in the roof of the Mini that he was restoring and discovered it was a former squad car with the Liverpool City Police. Only 3 of the original fleet of 24 unlikely little police cars remain intact, and the police even offered to help Peter achieve the authentic look.
They were true to their word. They supplied me the radio pack, roof box, everything I asked for, they provided.
The appearance of the new Mini sparked fierce debate amongst the purists. But fans of the Italian job were delighted to hear the latest model would get the Cooper treatment from John's son Mike.
We'll be continuing in the same fashion with producing fast versions of the car and hopefully producing race cars and continuing on the Cooper name.
Founded in 1204 by King John, Beaulieu Abbey was home to the Cistercian monks for 300 years before King Henry VIII threw them out. The main house was originally just the gatehouse to the ancient abbey. After the dissolution of the monasteries, it was sold for £1,300 to the Earl of Southampton in 1538 and then passed to the present Lord of the Manor. Locals say ghosts of the old monks still haunt the place, but Susan Tomkin, Bewley's archivist, hasn't seen any yet.
Oh, the ghosts of Beaulieu, yes. It's supposedly one of the most haunted places in southern England, and people have seen figures of ghosts and grey ladies and various others. I never have. I've been waiting.
Although the church is still in use, many of the other buildings are now just ruins. Beaulieu was heavily taxed and debt-ridden after World War II, and the decision to open the doors to the public was made in 1952. 50 years later, Lord Montagu says it's paid off.
The estate is in better order now than it has been for a very long time, and I trust I will be able to hand it on to my son in a good state.
With its future secure, Beaulieu now attracts over 500,000 visitors each year who come to be part of this place of lords, legends and landmarks. You'd have to live in a cave not to know that BMW is building the new Mini, more than 40 years after the first model rolled off the production line. And they say it's roomier, safer, cleaner and more fuel efficient, but keeps the style which made the original Mini an icon. Chris Willows is a BMW spokesman.
I think what's special about the Mini is that 9 out of every 10 British people have either been in one or driven one. It's an icon. The name Mini conjures up a very, very clear picture. And the Mini, which ceased production last year, was in production for 41 years. That's quite unparalleled in motorcar history. And that's why it is an icon.
The new Mini is being built in Britain, on the site of the same plant where the original car was produced. Around 40% of the car will be made of parts and panels designed and built by British companies, who had to compete with businesses from around the world. BMW says new Mini retains all the style of the original and the added benefits of the latest technology. The new Mini is slightly bigger, with added safety features like passenger airbags and an impact-absorbing body. Under the stubby bonnet is a modern fuel-injected engine, but laid across the width like the original, rather than lengthwise, as all other BMW cars are.
40% of its value, its physical value, is sourced in the UK. And of course, and most importantly, it's being built at a plant which was formerly known as Cowley, has been renovated right up to the most modern standards. It's now our Oxford plant, and that is dedicated to making Mini a car to the very highest quality standards it is possible to achieve.
The first Mini rolled off the production line in 1959. New Mini should be a big seller in Italy and France. They snapped up the originals.
When the Mini was shown at the Detroit show in January this year, there was a huge amount of interest for it. So we really think it will open up not only those markets which are familiar with what Mini is all about, but actually new markets too.
The Mini has gone on sale in most markets around the world, and in almost all of them there was a waiting list, but the little cars are now appearing everywhere. Rover is one of the old school names in motoring. It started at the Dawn, the first car appearing in 1904. The name was known in most countries, with models like this 3.5-litre V8. But the historic marque fell on hard times and almost disappeared in the 1980s. Rover lost much of its prestige until it became part of BMW. But even BMW couldn't make a go of it and relinquished control of the company, which included the equally famous names of Land Rover and MG too. But before they left, the Germans put a lot of time into designing new models, and the Rover 75 is the flagship. When you get to this end of town, you don't have station wagons or estates. BMW uses touring, so for the 5-door 75, Rover has opted for Tourer. The styling of the 4-door Rover 75 could be compared to a Jaguar. With a 5-door version, they've cleverly added the rear end without spoiling those lines. The rear window can be opened for loading small articles, and the tailgate opens to the floor, which gives an exceptionally low loading area. It swallows 680 litres with the rear seats up and 1,222 litres when they're folded down. There's a load area cover and a cargo net, which can be fitted behind the rear seats or the front ones. Under the floor there's another storage area, and below that is a full-size spare wheel and the tools. 2 long roof rails provide a mount for a carrier or a ski box. But with the back seats in place, the rear of the car offers good legroom. The whole cabin has furniture that wouldn't be out of place in either of England's other 2 more expensive marques, or an elegant gentleman's club for that matter. The pale leather with contrasting piping might not be too practical if the Tourer is actually used for moving stuff. I'd go for a darker interior, and a lighter exterior too. This metallic British Racing green paint looked like a pond on dull days. If you want to be picky, you'd note that the wood trim wasn't the same colour or the central clock is partly obscured, but the neat parchment oval instruments match the driver's control centre, complete with a multifunction steering wheel. Either way, it's streets ahead of the clinical, austere German interiors. Under the bonnet there's a 2.5-litre V6 engine fitted with a variable intake system, quad cams and 24 valves. It delivers 130 kilowatts and drives the front wheels via an adaptive 5-speed automatic gearbox. The box learns your driving style and selects a shift pattern, but the 5-door Executive Express weighs over 1,500 kilograms, which dulls the engine's performance a bit. Probably the best description is adequate. It goes well enough and will reach over 200 kilometers an hour where laws and space permit. It cruises quietly and smoothly, and overall on-road performance puts it into the executive rather than sporting category. Having said that, with a minimum of encouragement, the car will reward the driver in a hurry with a responsiveness not normally found in the average family wagon. More of BMW's heritage. Or an echo from a bygone era when Rover was great? In keeping with the upmarket image, the Tourer comes with ABS brakes, brake force distribution to help in emergencies, and in case that isn't enough, no less than 6 airbags. Definitely worth putting on the shortlist for consideration if you're in the market for an elegant car capable of hauling a big load on occasions. Being stuck behind a slow-moving caravan on a journey is thought by many to be one of the most irritating aspects of driving. At a disused airfield about 35 kilometres north of London, 20 drivers got some revenge by hitching old caravans to the backs of their cars for 10 laps of destruction around a 300-metre oval circuit. Despite the fact that the caravans were unlikely to survive to the end of the race, much effort was being put into customising them. Attention to safety consisted mostly of removing windows and loose objects that could cause injury. What people had come to see, though, was the destruction, the complete annihilation of the much-maligned caravans, according to race commentator Graham Woodward.
I think we've all been stuck behind them at one point, and it is very, very frustrating. I think some of us would always like to take them out on the motorway, but I don't think that'd be allowed. So there is a part of a bit of revenge seeing them taken out on the track this afternoon. But glorious sunshine, and you know, seeing all the mess, everything. It's what people love.
When the race got underway, the crowd were not disappointed as the caravans were quickly destroyed in a series of pile-ups. Some drivers seemed keen to get rid of the ugly lump on their back bumper as soon as possible. Some seemed not to care whether the caravan was there or not, while others were intent on crashing into other people's caravans at every opportunity. Being able to see where you're going is pretty important in most forms of motorsport, but not, it seems, in caravan racing. But eventually there were just too many stationary objects on the track, so the race was stopped long enough to sort out the impromptu chicane. Terry Koch took the lead after the restart and managed to battle his way through the debris to victory. Not many racing drivers celebrate a win by deliberately crashing on the slowdown lap and being promptly shunted by the second place getter too. There's a cruel irony in a race of any sort being won by a Volvo station wagon. The almost indestructible Swedish vehicles have long been the butt of motoring jokes about sedate Volvo drivers causing accidents, oblivious of other road users. Much like caravanners, really.
It just makes you laugh all the way around. You're just in stitches all the way around. It's just so funny. It is a bit of skill involved because you've got to know what to do and where to plant it as such. Some can just go in and not worried about getting anywhere, but if you want to get somewhere, you've got to have the money, you've got to win something, so you've got to be a bit crafty and then do the crashes after. But
another day, another dozen caravans bite the dust. Which all goes to prove that there really are different strokes for different folks. That's all for this week, but so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.